Picture this. Somewhere in a forgotten corner of America, the last car of a once proud brand sits covered in dust, its odometer frozen in time, bearing witness to dreams that couldn't survive. These aren't just machines. They're tombstones on wheels, chronicles of ambition, innovation, and the brutal reality that in the car business, being good isn't always good enough. What you're about to hear are the final moments, the last breaths, the final vents stamped into steel before the factory lights went dark forever. But first, I need to thank you. Part 2 exists because of your voices. Your comments flooded in. What about Kaiser Frazer? You forgot Mercury. Where's DeSoto? Where's Checker? I read every single one. I heard you. And this video is my answer. Today, we're diving exclusively into American car manufacturers, those born and bred on this soil. This isn't some vague nostalgia trip. We're hunting down the exact final car, the very last one that rolled through the factory gates when the end was already written. Everything arranged chronologically, like obituaries in a newspaper made of chrome and gasoline. Let's start with Tucker Corporation, a company that lived fast and died young. 5 years. That's all Tucker got before legal battles strangled it in its crib. Preston Tucker was ultimately acquitted, but the verdict came too late. The money had dried up. The factory had gone silent. Trust, once broken, stays broken. 51 cars. That's Tucker's entire legacy, all built in 1948. But what cars they were. Rear-mounted engine, disc brakes, a windshield that popped out during crashes. Concepts so advanced that Detroit thought Tucker was insane. The final authentic Tucker to leave the production line was chassis number 1050, dressed in maroon with a tan interior. And here's the kicker. It has the lowest mileage of any surviving Tucker today. I'm not counting cars 1051 or 1058. Those were Frankenstein machines, assembled from spare parts after the company died. They don't belong to that final moment. Under the hood sat a flat-six helicopter engine, pumping out 166 horsepower and 372 pound-feet of torque. Tucker didn't just build a car. He built a middle finger to conventional thinking. Many of you demanded I talk about Kaiser Frazer Corporation. While Henry J. and Frazer had already thrown in the towel earlier, Kaiser held on until 1955. And when they finally went down, they went down swinging. After hemorrhaging millions, Kaiser shut down U.S. manufacturing. But instead of limping out with some stripped-down Econobox, they released the 1955 Kaiser Manhattan, a technical masterpiece wrapped in pride. Under the hood, a 226 cubic inch inline-six with a McCulloch supercharger cranking out 140 horsepower, enough to embarrass plenty of V8s. Only 1,021 units were made. The detail I love most? The Widow's Peak windshield. Sharp, aggressive, completely different from anything Detroit was doing. After 1955, production moved to Argentina under the name Carabella. But for Americans, the Manhattan was the period at the end of the sentence. In the early 50s, Sears thought they could sell anything. And I mean anything. The same catalog that offered baby alligators for $3.88, prefab houses, and washing machines decided to add automobiles to the list. Enter Allstate. These are just rebadged Henry J. models, built by Kaiser Frazer and sold through Sears stores. Under the hood, Willis 4-cylinder or 6-cylinder engines, 2.2 or 2.6 liters, bolted to a 3-speed manual. Basic, practical, promising nothing it couldn't deliver. Total production? About 2,300 units between 1952 and 1954. Sears learned a hard lesson. Americans would buy almost anything from a catalog, except the car they drive every single day. And here's the mystery. Nobody knows exactly when the final Allstate rolled off the line. It just disappeared. Gaylord Cars wasn't trying to compete with Detroit. They had no dealers, no advertising, no interest in the masses. They wanted to build cars for the elite few, so they hired Brooks Stevens to design it. Yes, the same guy who created the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile, but this time he was crafting a luxury sedan. Their only model, the Gladiator. Power came from a Cadillac 365 cubic inch V8 making 305 horsepower. Smooth, powerful, uncompromising. But the dream died before it could walk. 3 cars. That's it. 3 Gaylord Gladiators were ever built. Today, each one's worth over $200,000. Not because of speed or technology, but because they're proof that some luxury dreams never get the chance to begin. Hudson Motor Car Company didn't die in a crash. It died in a marriage. When Hudson merged with Nash to form AMC, everything looked smart on paper. In reality, Hudson's soul started evaporating immediately. Enthusiasts call these final models Hudson plus Nash, and they spit the word out like poison. The legendary step-down body was gone. The NASCAR-dominating character was gone. What remained was the 1957 Hudson Hornet, riding on a 121.25-inch wheelbase, powered by a 327 cubic inch V8, making 255 horsepower. On paper, impressive. In the hearts of fans, an imposter. Sales, 4,100 units. Not nearly enough. Meanwhile, Nash Motors, the one who initiated the merger, also breathed its last at the Kenosha factory. The final Nash was the 1957 Ambassador, sharing its platform with the Hornet, but trying desperately to maintain identity through distinct styling and quad headlights, one of 1957's big innovations. The Ambassador was large, smooth, rational. It didn't provoke. It didn't inspire. And maybe that was precisely the problem. Nash exited sensibly, but it didn't leave the aching loss that Hudson did. Powell Manufacturing Company deserves respect. Founded in 1926, they spent decades buying old Plymouth chassis from junkyards, rebuilding them, then creating pickup trucks and wagons that were rough, utilitarian, and stubborn as hell. No flash, no marketing, just affordable transportation for working Americans. The coolest feature? Storage tubes in the truck bed, big enough for hunting rifles or fishing rods. Not a gimmick, a genuine understanding of their customers, farmers, hunters, people living beyond city limits. Powell built about 1,500 vehicles total, including station wagon and sport wagon models. When the supply of old chassis dried up and costs climbed, the doors closed quietly. The end of the 1950s delivered Packard's collapse, death by 1,000 bad decisions. In 1954, Packard merged with Studebaker, thinking it was a lifeboat. Instead, they tied themselves to an anchor. The last true Packard was the 1956 Patrician four-door, painted black, powered by a 374 cubic inch V8, making 310 horsepower. Powerful, luxurious, still carrying Packard's soul. Then came what enthusiasts mockingly call the Packard Bakers, 1958 Packards based on Studebaker platforms. The Packard Hawk sold just 588 units, a desperate face-saving attempt. The final car wearing the Packard badge was a 1958 four-door sedan in mountain blue metallic. A whimper, not a roar. I'll admit something embarrassing. There was a time I didn't realize DeSoto was actually a Chrysler division. And maybe that obscurity explains everything. DeSoto didn't die because it made bad cars. It died because it was trapped between Plymouth and Dodge, getting cannibalized by its own siblings. No strong identity. No clear purpose. By the early 60s, Chrysler pulled the plug. The final DeSoto was a 1961 two-door coupe in surf turquoise with a glacier white roof, silver vinyl interior, and TorqueFlite transmission. Technically complete. Strategically obsolete. DeSoto was pruned like a branch so the tree could survive. If one automaker refused to change until its dying breath, it was Checker Motors. For over 22 years, the Checker Marathon remained virtually unchanged, an endurance run that reminds me of the Chevy Express, existing for decades without chasing trends. Checker didn't care about style or fashion. They served urban America, where durability, space, and repairability were king. Wide doors, spacious rear seats, abuse-resistant body. Everything designed for one purpose, running as a taxi, day and night. The final Checker was an A11 taxi in green and cream. Today it rests quietly at the Gilmore Car Museum in Michigan, a monument to utility over vanity. No automaker on this list is more famous yet sold fewer cars than DeLorean Motor Company. The DMC-12 was more cultural statement than mass-market product. Gull-wing doors, stainless steel body, designed straight from the future, it became an icon. But beneath that sci-fi skin lurked a PRV V6, making just 130 horsepower. Pathetic compared to the expectations that body created. The price tag? Equivalent to $100,000 today. Way too high for mediocre performance. Add financial scandals and mismanagement, and DeLorean collapsed in 1983. Imperial was Chrysler's weapon against Cadillac and Lincoln. For years, it succeeded. Bold design, lavish interiors, American privilege distilled into sheet metal. But by the early 80s, technological ambition became a curse. The final Imperial was the 1983 model, a large luxury coupe burdened with electronic fuel injection that arrived before Chrysler could make it reliable. In theory, futuristic. In practice, unreliable and impossible to service, driving customers away in droves. Production, about 1,500 units. No record exists of the final car. A muted ending for a brand that once represented the pinnacle of American luxury. AMC's, and wasn't a typical bankruptcy. After Chrysler acquired them, everything was legally settled. But here's the fascinating part. The final car wearing the AMC logo kept rolling off the line even after Chrysler took control. That car was a 1988 AMC Eagle Wagon. A beautiful contradiction. Full-time four-wheel drive. Higher ride height than a sedan. Practical wagon body. This was the direct ancestor of the modern crossover. The final version even wore faux wood paneling. Unmistakably 80s, unmistakably American. Production, about 2,300 units. When the last Eagle left the factory, there was no ceremony. No commemorative edition. AMC just ended. Sterling was born from a brilliant idea. British luxury from Rover combined with Japanese reliability from Honda. But reality was brutal. Sterling cars didn't die because of their engines. They died because of electrical gremlins. Wiring faults. Window motors overheating, even catching fire. Small issues repeated endlessly, destroying customer trust completely. A luxury car where you're afraid to roll down the window is unacceptable. The final model was the Sterling 827 with a 2.7-liter Honda V6, smooth, refined, unmistakably Honda engineering. But reputation couldn't be saved. After just 4 years, Sterling vanished. Geo was born when GM wanted to sell small, fuel-efficient cars without putting a Chevrolet badge on them. Geo became the perfect cover for Japanese-developed models. In its final years, Geo was reduced to 3 names: Metro, Prism, and Tracker. Officially, all 3 ended in 1997. But personally, I consider the Metro the true final Geo. When everything transitioned to Chevrolet, the Metro retained its old generation the longest, remaining almost unchanged except for the badge. The Prism became an Americanized Chevy Corolla. The Tracker continued as a small SUV. But the Metro wasn't given the same treatment. It lingered quietly, then disappeared completely. Saturn wasn't just a car brand. It was one of GM's boldest experiments. The biggest innovation? Dent-resistant polymer body panels. Park in a Walmart lot. Let someone swing a door into it. Nothing happens. Very American. Very practical. Users genuinely loved it. By 2009, Saturn still had a respectable lineup. The rear-wheel drive Sky Roadster, the Aura XR with 250 horsepower, the compact European-style Astra, plus the outlook and view for American families. On paper, Saturn wasn't weak. But when GM restructured, Saturn was shut down. No farewell model. No final edition. And what troubles me most, I still haven't determined which Saturn was the final car off the production line. So I'm asking you, if you know, please leave a comment. The end of Pontiac is one of the most disappointing moments in this entire story. A brand that called itself the Excitement Division, a symbol of performance and emotion, ended with a car that couldn't be more ordinary. The final Pontiac was a 2010 G6 in Summit White. Here's the shocking part. It was configured as a fleet vehicle. Normally fleet cars use economical 4 cylinders, but this G6 had a 3.5-liter V6, making 219 horsepower and 219 pound-feet of torque. On paper, not weak at all, but step inside and everything feels cold. Nearly bare-bones interior. No commemorative details. No farewell badges. The only things that carried meaning were the signatures of Ohio factory workers, quietly leaving their final mark. Mercury was created to sit between Ford and Lincoln. For decades, it did that job perfectly. The final car wearing the Mercury badge was the 2011 Grand Marquis LS Fleet. Not commemorative, not nostalgic, just a true American sedan, built on the legendary Panther platform. Body-on-frame construction, rear-wheel drive, a V8 so durable it was practically immortal. In 2011, only 248 Grand Marquis units were produced. Small number, symbolic ending. It was also Mercury's best-selling model in history. 2.7 million units total, serving police departments, taxi fleets, families, and those who never want to change. Mercury didn't die from technical failure or scandal. It died because the world no longer had room for large, slow, loyal sedans. Carbon Motors Corporation never intended to build cars for the masses. One goal: create the first purpose-built police vehicle designed from the ground up for American law enforcement. That project was called the E7. Technically, the E7 was serious. Carbon Motors partnered with BMW to use the 3.0-liter twin-turbo M57 diesel, making 300 horsepower and 420 pound-feet of torque. Powerful, durable, efficient, emissions-compliant. Nearly ideal for 24/7 patrol duty. But Carbon Motors died because of money, not engineering. They applied for a $310 million government loan to bring the E7 into production and were denied, cited as high risk, unproven business model, lack of existing revenue. Here's what I can't stop questioning. Why was Fisker Automotive approved for $500 million while Carbon Motors was building cars for police? American police vehicles favor domestic manufacturers, a barrier a young startup could almost never overcome. Saab's departure was unlike any other on this list. Saab didn't die because it made bad cars or lacked character. It died because the modern world no longer had patience for technical differences. The new Generation 9-5 NG proved it. With 300 horsepower and 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 6 seconds, it was fast and solid with that distinctly Saab driving feel. Heavy steering, stable chassis, cockpit-like interior reminiscent of an aircraft. But none of that was enough financially. The final Saab in the truest sense was the 2014 Saab 9-3 Aero Turbo, 4 produced by NEVS after Saab had gone bankrupt. That car was later sold at auction for $48,200, not because it was rare, but because it represented the official full stop. Closing out this list is Local Motors, which began with an idea I genuinely respected. Community-designed vehicles, small-scale production, pushing back against the soullessness of modern Detroit. The product that made their name was the Rally Fighter, a truly American off-road machine. The Rally Fighter used a 6.2-liter LS V8, making 430 horsepower with rear-wheel drive, high ground clearance, and a muscular body. It was loud, rough, imperfect, but had a soul. The kind of vehicle that made you want to drive into the desert, not write an ESG report. Then everything took a wrong turn. The final product from Local Motors was Ollie, a boxy, autonomous vehicle. Slow, emotionless, a ridiculous self-driving turd. No steering wheel, no feeling, no reason to exist for people who actually love cars. I know one thing for certain. There are still many names not mentioned. American automotive history is larger than any single video. If the brand you love didn't appear here, I sincerely apologize. If you ever drove one of these cars, leave a like as a simple nod to the past. Leave a comment and tell me which brand you miss the most. And if you know which Saturn was truly the last off the production line, I'd really like to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe so we can continue reopening the stories forgotten in the old garages of America. See you next time.